Good morning, I am WaywornWyrm, and welcome to my channel. And welcome to the second episode of the Monster Manual Backward. Today we are going to talk about mages and archmages. So, let's jump into it. But first, I know what you might be thinking. We were in A yesterday, or 2 weeks ago. Why are we now at M? Well, Archmage is the second entry. However, I am pairing the stronger and weaker versions of the same thing together, going with the weaker first. So we're starting in M, then jumping back to A. So, here we go. Here is what I have to say about the Mage. So, the Mage is different from the Acolyte in that this is a 9th level spellcaster. It's challenge level 6, armor class of 12, 15 when it has mage armor on. It can be any race, any alignment, 9d8 hit points, which works out to 40 on average, speed of 30 feet, although if you are a wood elf, it would obviously be higher. If you were a gnome, it'd be smaller. Let's see, its stats are 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, and 17, which means it's pretty much the standard array. Oh, there's 2 11s. It's got saving throws of high intelligence and semi-high wisdom, skilled in arcana and history, decent passive perception of 11, knows any 4 languages, and is a 9th level spellcaster, which means it can cast up to 5th level spells. Spell save DC is 14, plus 6 to hit. And then it's got 4 cantrips, 5 level 1 spells, but only 4 slots, 2 2nd level spells and 3 slots to use, 3 3rd level spells and 3 slots, 2 4th level spells and 3 slots, and 1 5th level spell and 1 slot to use that with. It also has a dagger, which is a plus 5 to hit. And then that does 1d4 plus 2 piercing or 4 damage. Yeah, that's about it for the default. Mages spend their lives in the study and practice of magic. Good aligned mages offer counsel to nobles and others in power, while evil mages dwell in isolated sites to perform unspeakable experiments without interference. This is a decently powerful character. I would actually be tempted to use this as like an early game boss at the end of an arc. Yeah, that's where my mind jumps to first for this. This would be a good an arc that goes from 1st level to 3rd, maybe as high as 5th. Yeah, the starting village, there was some problem. Maybe there's a famine or, a drought or something like that. And as the characters investigate, they learn that there's this mage that's pulling pulling strings, and you've got to fight through some sort of organization, and then you get to his isolated tower, and you have to fight him and all of the arcane traps that he set. And then you get to the mage and have a pretty fun all-out fight. Pretty great. That's where I jump to first. The other places that I might jump is if you've got a adventuring party. Rival adventuring party is also a good one, just like the Acolyte and Priest were. Now, obviously, this would be a adventuring party when your characters are around 10th level or so. Yeah, that's generally how I'd use it, or I'd use it as a NPC advisor, or maybe the head of a library or university or something like that. Yeah, so with mages, I would use them similarly to priests. If you saw my last video on this series, just kind of up in power and such. And if you wanted to change him, obviously setting the race is going to be an easy way. Changing the spells, because we're talking about 17 spells he knows, and you can just go to the wizard spell list in the player's in the back of the player's handbook, and just change the spells, any of them. Especially because this is a mage who has prepared for battle on this day. And that's something that I think should really kind of cement in your mind what kind of mage this is. Like, he knew yesterday that you were going to get to him today, and he's chosen his spells to match that. Or like in this level, in this spell, he has Firebolt, he has Fireball, he's got Cone of Cold. Maybe you would want to keep to one element over others. I know that's kind of hard in 5th edition, but I would change like Cone of Cold to Cone of Fire, or something like that. I would describe it differently, but have it be very close to the same. Fireball could be Cold Ball. Those are the big things I would do to make the mages stand out. Maybe you could keep it to one spell school over another, like this one, he focuses on evocation, this other one on necromancy, this third one on enchantment, etc., etc. But if you have Volo's Guide to Monsters, just use those. They have that specialty there, and I think they're all close level-wise to this mage. So, change the spells, pick a race. It says there's variant familiars. Any spellcaster that can cast Find Familiar spell, which the mage and Archmage, that would be a spell that they had access to. They could have a familiar. Give them a familiar. And then, make sure you read the spell in the player's handbook if you're going to give them a familiar, which that's just a good idea all around. If you're planning on casting a bunch of spells at your players, have at least look over the spells at least once, just to make sure you have at least an okay idea of what they do. You can make him less powerful, and what I would do is just remove health and remove spells. So like I'd start off by, what I would do is I'd start off by looking at a 9th level wizard and seeing if they have the same spells, which in fact they do. So if you wanted to make him more or less powerful, just follow the wizard class for spell slots per spell level. And yeah, make sure you add or take away a D8 for every level you either bring him up or down. And yeah, that's kind of how I would use a mage, how I would how I would make it more or less powerful, how I would make one mage different than another. And I think mages are a high enough level that you don't want mage number 1, mage number 2, mage number 3. I'd say pick races, pick alignments, make each mage at least semi-distinct. You don't have to necessarily change their spells for every single one of them, although you could. But that would probably pretty quickly get into the realm of way too much work. So, yeah, I mean, if your adventurers go to some noble court, make sure there's at least one mage there. They're probably going to be of a race that gives bonus to intelligence. So, humans, elves, etc. There are actually a lot of races that give at least a +1 to intelligence, so pick whichever. If you're going to have an evil mage, if you're going to have a mage at all and they're stationary in a place, a mage's tower is iconic. Mage's towers are going to be filled with lots of magic stuff. And there's probably going to be magical traps. So that's something to kind of think about. But I wouldn't necessarily make every mage a boss, which we'll get into when we get to Archmages. But we'll maybe give the mage, if he's going to be a, first few level boss, make sure to make him memorable. And that's just what I would do with that is race, alignment, name, motivations. If they somehow know that your players are going to be there, have them statted out with spells to fight. If they don't, consider adding in, maybe instead of counterspell, he has divination. Actually, divination's a 4th level spell. And counterspell's a 3rd level spell. But you get my point. And so on and so forth. If they're not prepared, give them more utility spells rather than combat or defense spells. Because this idea that every wizard on every normal day is statted out like they're gonna go have a knockdown fight. It's not realistic. It's not how it would. Talking about what would be realistic with a spellcaster. But I think you get what I'm saying. Is just, if they don't know they're going to fight, they're not going to be optimally prepared to fight. Just because there's a whole bunch of spells that they have access to that can help with their plans. And the more important mages are, the more you should flesh out what their plans are. So that is all on the mage, and in a second, we'll jump into the Archmage. So moving on to the Archmage. The Archmage is, I believe, the highest challenge rating of Appendix B. Yeah. By a lot. Yeah, it's twice the challenge level of Mage, and Mage is the second highest. So the Archmage... Oh no, Assassin. Assassin is about midway between Mage and Archmage. So, mages can be any humanoid race, any alignment. Armor class 12, 15 with mage armor, 99 hit points, or 18d8 plus 18. Speed of 30 feet, and of course, race can change that. Stats 10, 12, 14, 16, 15, and 20. So a little bit better. Saving throws, intelligence and wisdom of +9 and +6. Skilled in Arcana and History. It's got damage reduction from spells, non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. And that is from Stone Skin. Passive perception of 12. Any 6 languages. Challenge rating 12. Has magic resistance. The Archmage is an 18th level spellcaster. Can use Disguise Self and Invisibility at will. And then has 5 cantrips. 4 first level spells with 4 slots. 3 second level spells with 3 slots. 3 third level spells with 3 slots. 3 fourth level spells with 3 slots. 3 fifth level spells with 3 slots. And then 1 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells with 1 slot each. And then also a dagger for shits and giggles. Archmages are powerful and usually quite old spellcasters dedicated to the study of arcane arts. Benevolent ones counsel kings and queens, while evil ones rule as tyrants and pursue lichdom. Those who are neither good nor evil sequester themselves in remote towers to practice their magic without interruption. An Archmage typically has 1 or more apprentice mages, and an Archmage's abode has numerous magical wards and guardians to discourage interlopers. So, one of the big things I would do with Archmages is make every single one of them unique. Pick a race, pick an alignment, pick a name, figure out his goals, what he wants, or she, or it, whatever you end up doing. I would highly suggest changing its spell list. I would say, you could have a single Archmage in your entire world, and that would be thematically appropriate. Or maybe 1 for each. 1 for each school of magic, or 1 for each continent, or maybe there's a small council of Archmages. But every single one of them a unique own person that you've made a major NPC. I would also, if you make them more powerful, which is very hard because they're essentially an 18th level wizard, so you can bring them up 2 levels. Or you could bring them down. If you bring them down, you could have like an Archmage of every empire, or maybe an Archmage of every kingdom. But I wouldn't have an 18th level Archmage be every kingdom. If you're going through and looking at like 3.5 and 4th edition stats, they had kings who were about 8th to 10th level. So an Archmage is more powerful than monarchs by such a long shot, at least individual to individual. And even in the world that I use for my homebrew game, the king of the kingdom that the players have been in for the last couple of years in real life is 15th level. So an Archmage would be more powerful than him. And yeah, so that's what I would do. I'd make sure they're all unique. I would say that they're going to be a force in your world, and pulling in from a different game, which I'm planning on using in a future series. It's a game called Legendary Quest. One of the requirements to get the class Archmage in that game is you have to find another Archmage and kill them. And you can take over being an Archmage. And I like that idea. I think that's one of the things I would do if I had a wizard character who is, at that upper level, is have him or her go and, if they want to become an Archmage, defeat an existing Archmage. And yeah, like a lot of the things I said in the first part of this video about mages can still apply to Archmage. I would use the wizard class as my template to to raise or lower their power level. And if they're good, I would have them be kind of a Merlin-esque character, where they're vastly powerful, but they spend most of their time counseling good kings or queens. And if they're evil, they're trying to become a lich. Because that's a staple in D&D, is evil wizards who have the power become a lich. And Archmages are powerful enough that that's what they should be doing if they're evil. So yeah, if you're gonna fight an Archmage, I would say it's either an evil Archmage, or you have a character that wants to defeat, not necessarily kill, but defeat an Archmage to become an Archmage. And I would never have a combat where it's just a single Archmage versus the party. He would have minions. They might be other mages. He might have veterans, which we'll get to near the end of Appendix B. Maybe you have to fight your way through like a bandit camp or an orc camp or something just to get to his tower, and then you have to fight your way through his minions, through his tower, and he has summoned elementals and other things, and there are traps everywhere, and then you finally push open the big doors to his throne room or his inner sanctum or whatever, and there's the Archmage and like 20 minions. Or if you're doing mages, maybe there's like 4. And so you're never going to find an Archmage by themselves. And Like, by default, they have the 7th level spell Teleport, and that is the only 7th level spell they have prepared. So when it's clear that the Archmage is about to lose, on his turn, he just casts Teleport, and he's gone. And you've won, but at what cost? And then I would have it so, like, his tower or whatever it is, which I'd come up with as its own whole dungeon. As soon as he teleports out, it starts collapsing or something, so they have to race out of there. They're still in danger of dying. Any traps that they bypassed rather than setting off, they're going to have to try and bypass again, except this time they only have so many rounds, or however long you want it to be. And they can't keep all of his magical stuff. They defeated the wizard, and then are unable to loot. So, that's what I would do for an Archmage. It's a big fight, and I would suggest possibly even going through his tower might be a multiple session thing. Like, it would be its own adventure from walking through the front door to the final fight. Just a long, drawn-out thing. Don't give them a chance to rest. You know, have it so by the time they're at the end, they're finally able to start that fight, they start it mostly drained of resources. And yeah, that's the Archmage. So, tune in on Wednesday, March 15th, where we're going to discuss the Assassin. And that episode should just be the Assassin. That should be the first one that kind of stands on its own, because there really isn't... I mean, I guess I could add Thug into it. But no, I think I'm just going to do the Assassin for that. And make sure you tune in tomorrow for the ending of the first dungeon of Dungeon Delve.